Hi, let's get going. So thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be having a bit of a chat about, your Wagon Bootcamp journeys. I've got a whole load of questions for you. Feel free to just share whatever you think is relevant, really. Tell you what, I'll start by just introducing myself, just for people that are tuning in that maybe haven't met me before as well. So I'm Anna, I'm the city manager at Wagon. So I was around when Alicia was on the boot camp, but for Melina and Harry, I guess you would have had other city managers. You graduated just a little bit a while ago. Let's start by getting some introductions from all of you. So Melina, do you want to start?
Yeah, I attended Wagon. I graduated last year in 2022, and I'm currently working as a software developer at Pearson.
Nice, thank you. Alicia?
Awesome. So I'm Alicia, and I did the data science bootcamp earlier this year, so Jan to March. And then, just a month ago, I started a new job. So I'm a software engineer in a bank in Credit Suisse, so as part of the market risk tech team.
Wow, cool. Thank you.
And so I'm Harry. So I did the web development bootcamp as well last year in the same batch as Melina, actually.
Nice.
And at the moment I'm running Tuggs,
Okay.
the dog food startup that I'll go into more detail about, I'm sure, later on.
Yeah, nice. Okay, thank you. So to get the conversation going, I've got some general questions for you guys. It will be good. Actually, we'll start with Melina. So you just mentioned that you're working as a software developer. Can you give me a bit of a background just into your journey and what made you decide to take on a boot camp at Wagon?
Yeah, so just to give you a brief background on what I was up to before Wagon, I was actually planning to go to medical school.
Mm-hmm.
So how it works, so I used to be in the US, and in the US you go to med school and get your Doctor of Medicine degree after bachelor's or sometimes master's degree. But after going through some, like my mom was diagnosed with cancer and she ended up passing away, and just a bunch of other experiences kind of led me to not really being as motivated I used to be about seeing patients for the rest of my life. So I kind of reconsider my values. And I was really interested in tech because, to be honest, it seemed like people have good work-life balance. There's a lot of different opportunities and routes you can go. You can be a software developer, but you can also launch your own business, etc. So I was looking for good coding boot camps in London, and I found the Wagon and very grateful I got to participate.
Nice, cool. And did you make any tough decisions around doing the data science bootcamp or web development, or did you just always know that web development was for you?
Yeah, I did take a look at both programs, but I think I was more interested in learning coding at the time. Okay. So that wasn't really a tough decision for me. I think I wanted to start out as a software developer, and then I was like, if I get interested in a different path, I'll go from there. But I did really want some solid coding skills.
Nice, cool. Okay, thank you. Alicia, why don't you give us some background to your career journey as well?
So should I talk about maybe why I decided to go into the Wagon, or a bit before that?
Yeah, I guess the run up to for your career, and then what made you decide to change tracks a little bit and
awesome.
Get coding.
So I was already working in tech at the time. I was working in an e-commerce SaaS platform, but I didn't have a technical role. So I was working in what was called the chief of staff team. So it was very project management based, basically, and I really enjoyed it, but I felt like I wasn't specializing. I felt like when I was in conversations with different stakeholders in the company, like from product or more technical people, I was missing out on key parts of the conversation if they would speak about the architecture of the product. So that was one of the things that made me think, I really want to sort of just be able to understand what we're actually selling as an e-commerce platform. And I remember as well having conversations with friends that worked in the company. I had a friend in the security team, and I remember that for some specific reason you had to find the number of times that a word had been said in the Slack channel for something for work. And he was like, I just wrote a Python script, and I was able to iterate through the conversation in that Slack channel. And I remember thinking, if I was able to do that, I could do things just much more quickly.
Yeah.
So I think it was a combination of wanting to just understand how software is built and just an end-to-end product, how it works, when people talk about it, what do they actually mean?
Yeah.
And also just being able to know what tools were at my disposal to build things and just make things quicker. And that was the main motivation for me to just say, I'm working in tech, but I need to actually gain technical skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I decided to do data science because I wanted to kind of focus on Python and SQL and learn about machine learning and deep learning, and just be able to sort of graduate with a project. So yeah, that was the reason.
Nice, cool. And thank you for touching on projects. I'm going to ask a bit more about projects and things later, because they're such a key part of the experience.
Yeah.
Cool. Harry, give us an introduction to yourself, please.
Yeah, so my background is a bit more varied, I suppose. I mean, in terms of, I studied maths at St Andrews for my undergrad, and so I had a bit of background in coding, but more solving kind of abstract problems with code rather than, I don't know, actually something that was maybe a bit more useful or practical day to day.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I started a few startups. So first one is a student storage company called Local Student Storage, which still operates just up in Scotland. And then I also ran an events company when I was at university before. Came to London and with my friends started a digital marketing agency, and after that then did a master's. So I had different little bits of kind of infrastructure I felt that I needed to be an entrepreneur or to start kind of a more scalable business. And that's why I felt that, web development, software engineering was a little bit of a missing link. And also was just something that I was really interested in. So it was at that kind of stage, back in the start of 2022 that I started trying to learn to code myself and realizing that I don't learn very well that way. And could do with a better environment. And so joined the Wagon.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I mean, it sounds like from your background you are incredibly independent, obviously a bit of an entrepreneur, very good at sort of going and working out how to do things and setting up all these businesses, and then learning to code. You approached it independently, but I guess kind of ran aground. And we work with a lot of people. They come to the Wagon because they've been learning to code on their own, but then got a bit stuck and felt like they needed some more resources, more reliable resources, I guess. So can you tell me a little bit more about your decision to actually do a boot camp?
Yeah, because I mean, there are tons of resources online.
Yeah.
And you certainly can learn to code yourself. I mean, I'm sure we all looked at YouTube videos or whatever else and other websites. But no, just for me, I wasn't really getting anywhere. It's just not the way that I learn. So I had a good look at of course, all the different courses that were there. But Wagon stood out more just because it's it is a shorter course, and at the period that I was in, I wasn't sure. I was in the middle of launching Tuggs. It wasn't, the company had been started, but we weren't quite ready to launch. But I wasn't in charge of the timeline. Sure. So a shorter course actually worked, and it was because it's shorter, it's also a bit more financially accessible.
Yeah. Nice, cool. So you've definitely touched on some of the pros. Yeah. So you've just touched on some of the pros of doing the boot camp, but I mean, did you feel like there were any cons at all for you, or?
Well, I mean, you have to be 100% committed. Yeah. Because I mean, with the boot camp, there were some people I think that join with the kind of idea, or they're kind of more trying to be idealistic and thinking they can just turn up and 9 weeks later become a full stack software engineer. It doesn't quite work like that. You really have to commit. So for the 9 weeks, it really was all I was doing and thinking about, because I wanted to get the most out of it. So I suppose the con is that, you have to, I wouldn't say it's a sacrifice, but I think you should be ready to be very challenged.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. Same question to you guys. Can you just talk to me about some of your pros and cons of the boot camp?
Yeah.
Whoever wants to go first.
Awesome. So I think, for sure, I think the in-person experience and the guided learning really helped. Because I think when you're trying to learn how to code on your own, you do encounter a lot of issues in terms of troubleshooting or not knowing what to do next. And it's so much better when you're in person with a group of people that you can just raise a ticket and they will give you a hand if you're stuck. When you're doing it on your own, it's completely different, and something that might just be a small, change that you have to make somewhere that you weren't aware of can become like a 2-hour job. So it's getting that support in person is really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is definitely like a big commitment, and it's, if you do the full-time program, you do have to kind of, because every lecture that you do builds upon what you've learned before, which is really good in the way that it's structured, and you just need to kind of be focused and make the most out of it.
Absolutely.
But the in-person experience was really good.
Nice, thanks. Melina?
Just to go on top of that, I think having a community of people who are going through the same journey as me was very helpful and encouraging, because there are days that you're going to be stuck, but when you look to your peers, you can ask questions, or they are that they're stuck just as you are. So I think that was kind of helpful for me. And I guess one con could be that if people have different learning style, and if you don't really like the structured curriculum environment, you just kind of like to pick and choose what language you want to learn, or if you don't like I went to the in-person one, so you will be, surrounded and working with your peers. So if you are someone who would rather just kind of be on your own, I guess maybe you might be better off just, learning on your own.
Yeah, interesting. So did you feel like you came to the bootcamp knowing what your learning style was, or did you learn something about yourself doing this experience?
I think I did really appreciate the structured curriculum, because before Le Wagon, I've watched a couple of YouTube videos, and I felt like I'm just sitting with my PJs kind of passive learning, and I watch like 10 minutes of YouTube, and then afterwards it's like, what did I watch? So I think I realized that I do like the structured environment.
Okay. And then just so building on the structured environment, could you just give us a rundown of what a day in the life of a bootcamp looks like?
So the morning started out with lecture. So there was different topics set for each day, and after the lecture, I believe around like 10:30ish is when we started our coding challenges, and every single day you're paired with a buddy. So, and every day we're paired with a different one, so that you can meet everyone in your batch, and you work on the coding challenges together. There's a lunch break.
Thank God.
So it's not like you're coding without breaks, and there are free coffee, teas. You can take breaks, but you basically work on the coding challenges till almost end of the day. But the last hour of the bootcamp was a live session where the TA, we were back in the lecture room, and then we kind of did a live coding together.
Nice.
And I also want to mention that while you're doing the coding challenges, you're not like left on your own. There will be TAs where you can create tickets, which was very, very helpful for me, because there will be times you get stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you tell me a bit more about what you kind of mean by raising a ticket, like for somebody that's maybe never raised a ticket before, and maybe like what a challenge looks like?
Yeah, so there's a set of coding challenges for you to go through. They're kind of like questions to solve, but then they're coding. And what I mean by the ticket system is that when you get stuck on a coding challenge, you don't really know where to go. But that's not to say like you look at it and then you just raise a ticket right away, because you want to, put in some thought into it before raising a ticket, and maybe you can talk to your buddy first too. But if you really don't know where to go, you can create a ticket saying, oh, I'm stuck on coding challenge 2. I don't know where to head. And then a TA will be assigned to you one-on-one, and then they will come to your table and help you out. And it's basically kind of like private tutoring. I would say, nice. Which is really a big bonus of the program.
Yeah, definitely having that like in-person responsiveness. So I guess when you're trying to solve your challenges with your buddy, does that involve a lot of YouTubing or like Googling around it, or are you purely using the resources provided?
I would say it's a combination. I definitely did go back to the lecture slides. It's great because the Wagon has all the slides provided for you in the online platform, so you don't have to be like jotting down all the notes during the lecture. So I went back to those, but you're also feel free to Google. I mean, Google will be your best friend, not just during the bootcamp, but afterwards too. So we're not like discouraged from using other resources.
Yeah, of course. I guess it's very real, isn't it, in a day-to-day job, having to use other resources as well. But yeah, like what happens during your day-to-day now? Do you have to spend a lot of time looking up I don't know, challenges that you're working on in your job yourself, or do you feel sorry, I'm going to redo this question. Actually, you know what, I might even just come back to a bit later.
Yeah,
sorry, I'm
sure,
going to move on a bit. Just thinking that this will go nicely into when I ask you some more specific stuff. So Alicia, can you tell me a bit about like the day-to-day of the data science bootcamp?
Yeah. So I think the structure is very similar to the web dev one. So we also had lectures, challenges, lunch break, and then end of the day recap. We also had buddies, which really, really helped because obviously, you know, people that decide to do boot camp do it for many different reasons and come from many different backgrounds. So you also, I think the collaboration aspect of it really helps and is definitely like a valuable skill for the future to kind of learn how to code alongside other people, because I think, you know, many times in life, if you want to work in tech, you will work as part of a group.
Yeah.
And people have different roles and different communication styles. So it's really useful to kind of learn that aspect of it as well and how to explain to someone else your thought process. So I really enjoyed that as well. But yeah, it was quite similar, I think, in terms of the structure, very hands-on, which is really good. And always sort of connected to the topic you're doing that day is always connected to what you've done before. So it builds up like really nicely.
Nice.
Until the moment that you built your own project, of course, which is like the last couple of weeks.
Okay, cool.
Which is fully hands-on, yeah.
Tell me a bit about project weeks.
So that was really cool. I think that's definitely, you know, because I think one of the coolest things about the bootcamp is that you graduate having something that you and a group have built like end to end, and it's just ready to go, and you know how to explain what you build.
Yeah.
So basically there is a process around people coming in and pitching ideas, so things that they want to build. So you have the option to, you know, think of something and present it to the rest of the group, the rest of the batch, and there's kind of like a voting system whereby like a few of the ideas end up sort of being selected, and then based on what people have voted for, you get placed, like based on your preferences, that voting, you get placed in one of the teams, and then you get to work with those people for a couple of weeks on that specific project. So as I said, super hands-on. You have to like really make every hour count and divide up the work, because there's a lot to deliver. It's, you know, it has to be front end, back end, the whole thing on the cloud. You know, it has to be like, it has to work on the day, and you have to then practice the presentation and make sure that like the model you've built actually works. So all of that in 2 weeks, and it has to be like fun and original and everything. So very hands-on, but it's really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, get to know people really well.
I mean, it's definitely you know, it's a very holistic learning experience, isn't it? It's not just coming onto a boot camp, learning to code and going home. You know, you're presenting, you're working in teams. Can you tell me a bit about how project weeks specifically have really helped you post boot camp?
So I think in terms of, going back, I think to similar to what I said about the buddy system. So just knowing how to, you know, speak to people in terms of like, okay, how are we going to distribute the work? What is everyone going to do is very useful. But then going into, I guess, how it actually works in the real world. So using GitHub and Git and learning how to do that when you're very time constrained is very helpful, because there's a whole methodology around, you know, when multiple people are working on the same project, even though it's different pieces of code, you usually work in like a collaborative like repository. So you have to understand what commands you need to use to put your changes basically in that repository and how it works, because otherwise you can lose track of changes if you don't, if you're not, you know, well versed with like how the software works. So that really helps, because that is usually how companies tend to work on projects, using that software and platform. So yeah, that was like really helpful to like have that skill after the bootcamp.
Okay, nice. Can you just explain what GitHub and Git is, just for anyone who hasn't heard of it?
Yeah, so GitHub is basically, so it's a platform that uses Git underneath. Git has it's a software, but it has a set of commands that you use either on your terminal if you're using Mac, or PowerShell on Windows, to sort of, God, this is a bit hard to explain, but when you're making changes to your code, you do that on your own computer. But the actual, you know, when you're working on it collaboratively, it's not on your computer, it's remote. So you kind of have to, whatever changes you make locally, you have to use a set of commands to make sure that those changes are then pushed or added to the sort of repository that is collaborative.
Yeah.
And that's your final project, your final product. So that's kind of how it works.
So you can track the changes, right? And you can see, is it a bit like creating versions of a final
Yeah, and you
project?
can have a look at what new changes people are adding. And something very common is that when you're adding new changes, you need to get a peer that is working on the same project as you to like review it, to make sure that you're not doing anything that can break what is, you know, what is meant to be the final product. So yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of like version control, yeah.
So, and you had a bit of project management experience before doing this. Was that useful, or did you find everybody could learn how to use Git and GitHub?
So I think anyone can definitely learn how to use Git and GitHub. I think there's, I guess, two layers to it. I guess one is, you know, how are you as a person? Are you more of a, you know, someone that likes to delegate or likes to maybe just have a clear task and just get on with that? So I think there's one aspect of that I guess, you know, if you have done project management, it does help to kind of understand how people best work and how to handle that, and kind of how to just, outside of GitHub, how to track what you can do. Like there's other tools out there like Trello, for example, which is very, you know, we used it for project management when we were doing the project. Yeah. So that's really useful. And I guess, that's a different probably set of skills. But then using Git and GitHub, I think anyone can learn because there's sort of different aspects to it. But you can definitely learn what GitHub is, how it works, and just how to use the right commands and how to kind of control what you want to add and what you want to delete. And
Okay, nice. Yeah, it's definitely like a skill and a tool in itself, isn't it? And there's definitely a communication piece. So so when you went into projects, how did you work with your new team to decide who was going to do what and kind of establish your strengths and weaknesses, I guess?
So I think, in my team, the person that pitched the idea was a colleague of mine. So I think by default, they are kind of like the team leader. Yeah. And then I think one of the things that we did, I think at first you obviously have to, you know, you have to think of all the components that you want your project to have. And then you can just divide it up based on what everybody wants to focus on. So I think it's just a conversation, a matter of talking to people and saying, hey, look, I'm more interested in, so in our case, we used Streamlit for the front end. So some people just like to, you know, they like to focus on the look and feel and kind of work on that bit. Other people are more interested in making the model work and like fine tuning it. And in our case, thankfully, our team leader also had the domain knowledge because he'd studied, I believe it was either biochemistry or something related to what we did in our project.
Useful.
So I think it was a combination of basically just knowing each other and what everyone's skills were, background, and what we each wanted to do, and we just had a conversation about it. And it also sometimes just kind of naturally, you know, maybe at the beginning we were all doing a bit of everything, and then when we started kind of drilling down on, okay, this is the model that we're going to use, then somebody would specifically say, okay, I'm going to work on fine tuning it. You can start with the front end and I will look at this other thing. So it was a bit of a conversation and kind of just naturally getting to a stage where we knew that we actually had to properly divide up the work that was left.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it's just all about that communication piece and like really understanding.
Which is why doing it in person as well is really helpful, because you come in every day and they're right there. You know, it's very different to doing it remotely, that bit, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be really tough. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's me personally. I think that wouldn't be for my personality, but
same.
Of course, you know, make it work. Kind of.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, Harry, you came to Wagon with Tuggs, your current company, already established, right? Yeah. So did you come into Wagon like hoping to work more on Tuggs? Did you work on Tuggs for your project week?
No, I mean, I did propose that we would do like as Lucas said, everyone kind of votes different ideas, and I proposed a dog health app, but everyone saw through it. You know, they could see what I was doing, so I got voted down heavily. So no, I not really. I mean, I tried to plug it as much as I could, and I was always asking questions with kind of an idea in mind. Like we had the website built on WordPress at that time, so like because everything with the company was actually ready to go, but we couldn't find a manufacturer, so that was the main problem. We couldn't find anyone in the UK, we couldn't find anyone full stop, and so it was really quite in limbo. But we had all our recipes, we had the branding, we had the website done. But I basically just had in mind, even though the website was done on WordPress, which is PHP on the back end, that I wanted to learn, you know, to code and would probably rebuild it because it was just an MVP really. And then that's what we've ended up doing. But no, so I had in mind doing the course. how can I try and learn things that are going to be more relevant to tugs.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So even though you didn't get to do tugs as your project, what were the most valuable things, I guess, you learned from project weeks?
Well, you basically learn the key architecture infrastructure of starting something from scratch. So you get a really good grasp of kind of every file that's going to be required. And basically, I suppose, you could kind of say you're learning how to look around a repo, and you can search for things properly, and you can find things easily, and the database schema as well. To be fair, that's actually probably one of the most important things, because again, that's one of the most difficult things to get right in any business, is the database, the schema.
Can you tell me exactly what a database schema is for anyone that might not know?
I probably can't tell you exactly. I can.
Or give me what you know.
The schemas, databases are made up of tables, columns, rows, and the schema is basically the representation. Or what I think of schema, I suppose, is the file in the Rails app, whereby you can see all the tables of your different. So for example, let's take Tuggs. We'll have a table for pets. So pets, that's a model, and under pets you've got the pet's name, age, breed, etc. So those are all columns in the database, and then you'll have another table which would be users or addresses, things like that. So structuring that properly is integral to the app actually functioning properly. And so that was a good thing to learn, because you build up your database, you build up the schema from scratch and try and visualize it and everything. So that was very useful.
Okay, nice, cool, thank you. Okay, so moving on from projects a bit, I would love to ask you guys about the alumni community and the kind of network that you've created through Wagon. Has anybody got any sort of good stories or any sort of examples of how the network has really worked for them post bootcamp?
I mean, I could jump in straight away because, we're a small team of 4, but our tech lead was my lecturer at, Melina and I is one of our lecturers at the course. So Leslie, who's still a senior lecturer at Tuggs. So at Wagon. So I mean, straight off the back, that was quite a good way to utilize the network. He came in, he joined Tuggs in April, and was key part of us really remodeling or redoing the website entirely on Rails.
Wow.
Really
good. Yeah, so good for hiring, definitely.
100%.
Nice. I myself actually, so my batch, we all still stay in touch, which is really nice. Like some of us are London based, so that's really awesome. One of the members of my team actually went on and did some work with the project that we built, and sort of like spoke to some sort of biomedical or biochemical company, and they were quite interested in the project. And also I actually live with someone that I met at Wagon, so one of my flatmates, we met this year, and we've been living together now for like a month. So I mean, that's a very good outcome for me.
So great thing about Wagon is that after you graduate from Wagon, there's a Slack community where you can reach out to anyone you want to talk further. And there was actually Wagon alum who that I was interested in talking to. I was really interested in like the work she does. So I reached out to her, and we first had a casual Zoom call, and we ended up actually becoming really good friends. So and she ended up like inviting me. She runs a tech podcast, so she invited me to speak at her podcast twice, and we've met up for dinner. So you can definitely make a connection through the Wagon alumni network.
Nice. I've definitely can think of a few people who've just made friends for life. Like it is phenomenal. And obviously we've got the co-working space as well. People seem to drop in all the time. It becomes a bit of a hub, which is really nice. Okay, can I ask you guys, how did you actually hear about Wagon? Did you just Google it, or do you have like references? Did you know people that had done it?
For me, I think I did know some people that had done it, but then it was actually mostly some review sites, to be honest.
Okay,
because there are quite a lot of them in Wagon at the time, maybe still. It fares quite well on those. So I think it was from kind of just online research.
Okay. Nice.
I did have a friend. So in my previous company, the tech company, I did have a friend that had done the part-time one. So he did the web dev one in the evenings. And that's why I sort of started looking into it.
Okay.
Because I knew someone that had done it and it worked out for him. So
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I looked at reviews like Harry mentioned, and Wagon just really seemed to have a lot of positive reviews. And so after looking at that, I decided to sign up for Wagon's info session, which was very helpful, gave a good overview of the program. And then I scheduled a one-on-one with one of the admissions counselors at Wagon, and then she kind of talked me through in more detail, and that's kind of how I made my decision.
Nice. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, that was, I think this is like the most common paths that I hear from people. Definitely like that combination of reviews and checking it out, coming to the sessions, but those referrals, those in-person referrals definitely happen as well. So yeah, cool. Thanks. Okay. Big question, and I don't mind who answers first. If you could do anything differently about your bootcamp experience, what would you do?
make it longer, I would say.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Staff time, because I think obviously when you do boot camp, like from my perspective, the idea is that you get an overview of everything and that you at least know when you graduate, you know how to go about it. So you're, as Harry mentioned earlier, you're not going to be ready to do it on your own from day zero after the boot camp.
Yeah.
So one of the key things is that like you leave knowing how to go about it and where the materials are that can guide you to sort of find other resources and build whatever you want to build. But yeah, I think, having a longer one where you could actually take some time to maybe review stuff. And the challenges obviously are quite lengthy, the ones you do every day during the boot camp, so you never have time to finish. So maybe I would just make it longer and just have time to proper, deep dive into things, and so sort of like consolidate the knowledge. But it is part of the, the aim of the bootcamp that you're able to kind of do that after as well. So
absolutely. Yeah. Set you off on your journey. Yeah. Anyway.
No, it's true. Yeah, there are a lot of, because every day you have a set number of challenges, and very rarely, barely anyone gets through all of them. So, which is, it's not a bad thing. But no, so more time perhaps. But then that's also something that's attractive about the program. So it depends.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have like too much regrets, but I would say some things that I would definitely recommend, and like I'm glad I did, is like not missing a single day of boot camp, because I feel like it just moves so quickly that if you miss one day, like for some other school, it might not be a big of a deal, but if you miss one day, you will be missing out. So I definitely recommend, of course, if you're sick or something, things happen, but try to be there on time at 9:00. And for me personally, I'm glad I also went in person. I'm sure you can learn just as much from online if you're an online learner, but I did like having that community, as I mentioned, and just being in person on campus.
Nice. Okay. Something I hear lots of people at Wagon saying is that doing a boot camp is really just learning how to learn. Does that statement kind of ring true for anyone, or does anyone completely disagree? Or anything
massively agree.
Yeah, massively agree.
Yeah, I think, like as I was saying before, I think it sort of gives you the resources. It gives you the skills to, or the knowledge of like what are the different components that go into everything that I've learned, and then you kind of know a little bit about what each of them does, and you know how they work together. But if you want to do it on your own, you have to maybe, again, like refer back to the materials or Google stuff. So it tells you what direction to take, and where you can find the resources that are going to take you further. But that's, sets you off, as you said earlier, like on your like learning journey, really. But it teaches you those things, like where do I look for what I need to find, and what is it that I need to find.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of knowledge that you need to take on board. So I think you need to be clever about how you do try and consume all the information and how practical you are with it. But
going with that attitude, I think, is what makes the difference, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. I think it's important to know before you come on, or if you do the course, if it's really going to benefit you, or if it's something you really want to do. I wouldn't do it on a you know, if you're at a lost cause and you think, oh, I'm just going to become a web developer, I don't think that's quite the attitude. I don't think every man and their dog should, you know, be a web developer or a data scientist, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you're going to commit to it, you should commit fully.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Thanks.
Yeah, the Wagon definitely sets you up to kind of be able to learn any other coding languages too.
Sure,
I mean,
okay.
the curriculum definitely focuses on Ruby,
Mm-hmm.
but if you decide to learn another language in the future, it kind of sets you up on like how you can learn
Yeah.
and by practicing or Googling, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it does kind of get you started on the whole coding journey, because you will have to continue learning to keep up with the new changes and
Yeah.
features.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because there are obviously so many coding languages. And so it must be really tough to know which ones are the best ones and which ones are the right ones. And, you know, I think Wagon has selected what they think are the most useful. But have you had to do any additional like education post bootcamp or learn any other languages?
Yeah, so in my current role, my company, we use JavaScript and React for front end, and then for back end, we use Java.
Okay.
But I was actually hired before really knowing how to use any React.
Okay.
So I would say, like, as long as you show that you are potential
Yeah.
and you have the capability of learning, because you have learned Ruby in that short amount of time, like you can pick up any other programming language. So I think that's something that Wagon gives you. It kind of shows your ability to pick up, your ability to learn in a short period of time.
Okay. So tell me a bit more about that conversation you had with your like current employer, I guess, when you, I guess, said, you know, I don't know how to use this language. Like, what did that look like? How did you kind of sell your potential?
Yeah, it seemed like they weren't too focused on what programming language I learned before, as long as they know that I have done some sort of coding before and I have the potential to and the openness to learning. Because even within my company, depending on which team you're in, they all use different languages. Some use TypeScript. My team doesn't use any TypeScript. Some other team uses .NET. My team doesn't use .NET. So I think they wanted someone who's open to learning and kind of adaptable, instead of someone who's like, this is my language, this is the only one that I'm going to use, and I don't want to learn anymore.
Yeah, nice. I feel like that's a big relief to a lot of people out there who are thinking like, oh my God, how do I learn every single language and be watertight for these interviews? But yeah, it's not about that, is it? It's
yeah,
just
I
about
think
being
just
open.
be open about it and just show that you're enthusiastic and open to learning.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Alicia, have you done any post bootcamp education?
Yes, I think that's the case in like if you work in tech in general, whether you code or not, because a lot of jobs in tech you don't actually need coding for. But whatever you do in tech, like you need to be continuously learning, because I think tech and innovation go hand in hand, and there's so much, for example, hype around AI right now, and there's just so many things coming out that you need to be continuously doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I would say all the time like that. Yeah, like. There's just so much to learn. It's good to specialize, I guess, in one language and maybe like, you know, because that will help you also pick up other languages as you guys were talking about. But yeah, I think continuous learning is always like a thing. And when you join a new company, they'll have like a specific maybe cloud provider they want you to learn about, specific set of tools and custom applications. So that's always the case, and they know that you don't necessarily know those things.
Nice. Okay, great. Thanks. Harry, have you done any post bootcamp education?
Well, I mean, I've not learned any other languages, but the first thing I did was try and kind of reconcile what I'd learned. So after the bootcamp, I gave a great, or I think a good attempt at rebuilding the site myself on Rails. Got to a specific point, and then it was not. It was good. I hit quite a brick wall, but I spent, I think, like maybe 2.5 months just on my own, just trying to rebuild it from scratch, which was good to do. The website now has very little of that code still in it. It's kind of all been overwritten, thankfully. But that was good to kind of learn some of the basic stuff. And I do still now try and code when I can.
Okay.
I think I just end up annoying Louis and our tech lead, because sometimes I'll pull the latest update from GitHub, and then I'll create a branch which is like, it's called like playing around. That's what I'll call it.
Okay.
And then I'll mess something up, and I really, like 2 weeks ago I pushed the playing around branch to GitHub, and Louis merged it, and it just like I was playing around with some data analytics stuff on the dashboard, and just none of it made sense anymore.
Good.
So yeah, it's yeah, it was not ideal, but yeah, so I still try and do as much as I can.
Yeah.
I should try and do less maybe, but
I mean, well, some people say that you learn the most when you break things.
yeah.
Do you think that's true?
No, it is. I mean, I don't think you should try and break things,
No,
but you do learn a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time. Like, there's always going to be issues, and when you're trying to create an innovative feature, or things will break. And we've had so many problems with. Well, I'm just talking kind of about our website, but we've had so many problems with when we merged or moved to the Rails site. We had so much imported data, which was all in a different format.
Yeah.
And it basically there's been a lot of problems with that, basically, because old subscribers will try and log in. It's sorted now, it's smoothed over, but for a period of time would log in, and just all the data, all the information they'd see about their subscription was wrong. But these are kind of things that you have to deal with, and that they're always going to happen, because as you build stuff, as you add more features, things will break, and nothing ever works out smoothly like that.
Yeah, definitely. I remember having a good chat with somebody the other day who was like, you spend your whole life learning to code and it's not working half the time, and you're just looking at this code thinking like, why isn't it working? And then you get a bit better and things start working, and you start looking at your code thinking, but why is it working?
Because we have so many problems as well, like, because obviously with you have local host, so as in you can change your website, you can edit code and look at it locally before pushing, deploying to your production site. And there's so many times that we'll be creating a feature, or we'll be looking at it, and things won't be working, the data's all wrong, and then we realize that we're looking at our local host and not the production site, and that's why, because the data's obviously different across the two sites, and we'll have spent half an hour debating about what's going on, trying to read into it, and we've just been looking at the wrong URL.
Oh god, it's that like can't see the wood through the trees kind of scenario.
Exactly. So sometimes there's not actually an issue, it's just you've been looking at the screen for too long.
Oh my god, need to
that's
take
a
those
massive
breaks.
thing. You just need to take
5 minutes.
That's a massive help.
I think like one of the things that a lot of people struggle with when they're thinking about moving into a tech career is I think that being technical is this slightly scary concept, and because you have to kind of be perfect at the end of the day, like stuff has to work, everything has to be right. But I don't know, does anyone have any like advice for anybody who's kind of concerned about this? And I don't know, just thinking back on what we talked about, like breaking things, maybe failing a little bit, like how have you overcome those concerns?
I can.
Yeah, no. I was more just gonna say. I mean, it's just with things say failing or breaking or uncertainties. I mean, you just kind of have to deal with them as they come.
Yeah.
You can't foreshadow these things or anticipate too much. So it's just about dealing with it when it comes, and trying not to overthink it.
Yeah.
That's what I think, and then try and laugh about it afterwards, as long as it wasn't too serious, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that it seems like a lot of people are intimidated by technical interviews, and I was too. Yeah. Because you don't really know how it's gonna go. I'd never really had a technical interviews for my previous job, so I think, but you have to. It's not always about like getting the right answer, but just try to talk through your process, especially for interviews where they have these live coding sessions. I know it can be hard to code on the spot, but I think they also want to see what you're thinking in your head, so just keep talking as you are writing your code, even if it's not the exact right code. They will appreciate it if they like your thought process. And sometimes when I had take-home coding assignments, some companies would encourage you to write notes. So just kind of, even if you didn't exactly get the right answer, just kind of try to write out what you are thinking. So I would say it's not always about just getting to the right point.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. I would say that when it comes to kind of breaking things and when stuff isn't working and you really don't know why, like I think that is part of the learning process. The more, you solve those issues when they come, like, the first time, if you don't have anyone's help, it will take hours maybe for like a small thing, but then you'll get to a point where you kind of know what potential issues you're having, so you just become quicker at solving them.
Yeah.
And it's quite satisfying if you're able to solve it yourself. So I think it's just part of becoming, someone that knows how to code and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's just starting in your first job, you don't know how to do everything. And that's what you gain with experience, right? That's to be expected. I think there's a lot of like a lot of fear, a lot of I spend a lot of time talking to students, people that are looking at graduating, that are starting on their job hunt, and they're so concerned about not knowing everything. Do you have any tips for people who are starting their job hunt, who are maybe in this headspace that they don't know everything? How am I ever going to know everything?
I still don't know everything, and I'm still learning. So I wasn't really too scared of facing like rejection letters if I were to apply. I just kind of thought it as like, maybe we're just not a good fit, or even if you fail a coding interview, you just take it as a learning experience. But I think you just kind of maybe have to see it as more as a journey path that you are continuously going through, instead of like you're gonna reach at one point and it's like, I'm done learning. So I just kind of see it as more continuous journey even now.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. I think you never really know everything. Like, it's such a deep sort of thing to go into tech that you're never really gonna know anything. Sorry, everything. And obviously, as we spoke about earlier, like there's so many new things coming out all the time, and so many people creating new things that you're never gonna know everything. I think, you can just sort of, learn. Just want to learn and kind of demonstrate that you have an interest in it, and that like how to be resourceful and how to pick up languages and stuff. But I think you never really know anything. Everything. I keep saying you do know some things, just not everything.
No, exactly. No, I agree with both of the girls. You'll hopefully know something, but not everything, right?
Yeah, and to get comfortable with just not knowing everything, because how can you ever know everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about technical interviews. It's definitely like a bit of a like concern point for a lot of people. Has anybody got any good technical interview experiences that they want to share?
So the roughly to outline the job interview process I went through was, the first stage was usually an HR screening. So for that, they never really asked me any technical questions. It was more like just screening, just 20-30 minute call with the recruiter. And then the second stage, I usually had a technical interview, but I've experienced a couple of different formats. And one of them I've briefly mentioned was live coding.
Okay. Yeah.
Second type was take-home assignment.
Okay.
And third type was more timed tests that you log in and then take during that time.
Okay.
So there were variation in terms of how much is expected, and also variation in terms of the difficulty level as well. But I think there's pros and cons to each one. I know a lot of people are intimidated by the live coding because someone's kind of watching you at the same time. But the good thing is that it's a great way to show your thought process as well. So, and it's not like a test where you just kind of write a line, and if you get it wrong, maybe they don't really know what you are thinking.
Yeah.
But there are resources like LeetCode to help you if you want to practice more coding afterwards. I wasn't too prepared going into the coding interview, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think I was also lucky in a way where I interviewed for my current company. I interviewed with my current manager and a senior developer, and they also asked me questions like to talk about some of the technical projects that I've done at Wagon.
Okay, great.
So I had a lot of like, those are there were projects that I actually did, and I was really interested in talking about them. And I think they also appreciated the fact that I have built something on my own with my teammates. So I think that definitely helped.
Nice. Thanks. Alethea?
So myself, I entered as in the current role I have. So I got it through sort of a training scheme. So the questions I got myself, they weren't very technical.
Okay.
They did ask very sort of basic Python questions, as in like, like how would you open a file and iterate through it kind of thing and check some things.
Sure.
So they did want you to explain from the beginning what you would do. And then I did get questions around, what do you think the software development lifecycle looks like? But it wasn't I didn't have to do live coding. I didn't have to do that kind of stuff. So for me, it was quite smooth. And it was, again, HR as well. Yeah. I had a couple of HR calls then with my manager. And they just wanted to know that you knew the basics and were ready to learn, I guess.
Okay, great. And you can get into that junior software dev role, or software engineer, or software engineer. Nice.
Well, I mean, I maybe luckily haven't had any technical interviews, or and when hiring as well. I knew Louis. Well, we are hiring further in the new year, so we'll probably have to define better how we interview.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. Maybe pick your brain some more on what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be. But no, I've not done any myself.
Okay, lucky. That's
I
nice
think
to
so.
avoid in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
But then being a founder of a company is like a different kettle of fish completely, isn't it? That's
I guess so.
Yeah. You have to pick your problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can't interview for that one as such, but always different kind of issues. And I mean, because that was the problem, because up until April it was just myself working in the company, and there's 4 of us now, so it was hiring the first few people was so it's generally people, well, 2 of them I'd worked with before and 1 worked for a competitor, so that was kind of more easy to hire. But it was a weird process because I didn't really know. And when you're hiring, if you're going to be the second or third in a company, it's kind of, there's no real defined role. You kind of have to do a little bit of everything. And like for Louis, when he was coming on, and I was basically saying that we're rebuilding the website entirely. Like, I don't exactly know what it looks like. I hope you do. By the way, do you want the role? It's a difficult one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, going at it with a really broad mind, I guess, for Louis, that's a huge opportunity, right? As a new software dev. I mean, Louis has been a software dev for like a few years, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, he did the bootcamp himself, but
exactly.
years ago. But he had a lot of coding experience before, and he can code in many languages. So he's very qualified. But I think it was a good opportunity to start something completely from scratch and kind of define your role a bit further. And I think it'll still be that way for a while.
Yeah, you just learn on the job.
Exactly.
Learn on the job.
Probably the same for everyone, to be honest. Within reason,
Absolutely, yeah. I think education takes you so far, and then it goes back to that, like learning how to learn as well. Because so many people, I think, for all of us here, actually, I mean, it's been a good few years, I guess, since we've graduated, and so getting back into learning is probably really important. I don't know how anyone feels about that, but. I mean, I could do with a refresher. It's been 10 years since I graduated.
Did you do the boot camp as well, Wagon?
No, but I've done some like shorter part-time coding boot camps, and definitely like learning how to learn, getting back to like pattern finding, technical details. It's been a while, and I actually come from an arts background as well. So for me, it was a very different way of thinking that I really had to think about. But it was good, and I actually think it's helped my problem solving in other areas of my current job.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you code at all or no?
No, not on a day to day.
But you're exposed to it, I guess, all
Definitely.
the time.
Yeah. Well, it's important I know how to talk about it.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Melina, can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing now and how you got the job you're currently doing?
Yeah, so I'm currently working as a software developer at Pearson. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a company where we produce a bunch of textbooks, online learning platforms, tests for schools and students. And in terms of how I got this role, I started putting together my resume during the career week right after the boot camp.
Okay, cool.
So, and then I turned on the open to work feature on LinkedIn and did all the LinkedIn update during that time.
Nice.
And then towards the end of the career week, or probably just like the week right after, I started applying for jobs. I mean, the role itself I found on LinkedIn and just applied through there. I heard from the HR first, went through the hiring process.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much how I found a job. And in terms of my daily work, so I went in as a full stack developer.
Okay.
But our team is kind of structured in a way where you can you can express your interest in whether you're more interested in front end or back end. And I've been kind of more interested in React. Okay. So recently I've been mostly using React and JavaScript. Okay. And my team in particular, we're building an online learning platform. We're moving all the more paper resources, quizzes, textbooks, and onto an online learning platform for schools.
Cool, nice. So during the bootcamp, did you know that you wanted to be full stack, or did you kind of prefer front end or back end?
Yeah, so during the boot camp, I didn't really have a strong preference between front end and back end. So I didn't want to just stick to one area because I thought it would makes more sense to start out broad and then narrow versus if I pick one thing, then I thought it kind of have to switch over to the other, which I thought might become more difficult. So I did want to start out as full stack, but then now I've kind of become more front end person.
Okay. Well, it's nice you can do everything though. I guess for anybody who's sort of choosing or maybe has an idea already of if they want to be a back-end developer or a front-end developer, do you have any kind of key advantages, do you think, for learning the full stack?
I think whether you're a front-end developer or a back-end developer, you definitely want some knowledge of everything because you will be working together with whether you're and I feel like some startup companies, they just want to hire one full stack instead of kind of separating it out into a full stack where front end or back end. So it depends on the company. So you do want some overall knowledge. Yeah. And you never know. Also, you might learn something new and discover that you like something better. So just have an open mind. Okay, nice.
And then I know that you've done quite a lot of education. Like I saw that you've got 2 masters, which is amazing. But I guess there's quite a big difference between doing something like a master's and doing accelerated learning, like a boot camp, like the Wagon. How did you find that change of pace in your learning?
Yeah, so I would say the curriculum was a little bit different in a sense that the Wagon's curriculum was more hands-on learning. They will teach you more, instead of teaching you more conceptual, like maybe computer science concepts. Not that they don't teach you any of those, but it's more hands-on, like what you'll need to do your job. Okay. Yeah. Rather versus when I was doing my master's, they focus a bit more on kind of also more theoretical concepts, but it's hard for me to compare because it wasn't like Master of Science in Computer Science. Yeah, okay. So 2 different programs, but yeah, and we also it was 1 year each program, so it was definitely longer.
Yeah, much longer.
And I'd say the bootcamp was more focused in terms of that most people were looking to go into specific tech roles. For web development, software engineer, software developer is a very common path. So I would say, like, except for people like Harry who had their own business, most of us were kind of going towards the same goal. Versus in my master's, even though we had a subject that we were studying, there were a very more diverse path that people were looking into.
Okay, nice, thanks. And then last question, what did you find most valuable about doing the bootcamp?
I would say definitely, it definitely taught me the skills to pick up any other coding language quicker. Okay. I mean, learning Ruby was definitely helpful, and even though I don't use it on my day-to-day job, I would say it made learning other languages easier, and it also gave me a sense of what it would be like to work as a software developer after the bootcamp, because during the last few weeks of bootcamp, you'll be working with your teammates on the project. Okay. And you'll be, I don't know if I should get too technical, but you'll be creating branches, merging, and that's kind of what we do in real life. So it will give you a sense of what it's like to work as a software developer.
Cool. Thank you so much. Cool. Alicia, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So I know that you have a background in the finance industry. You've learnt to code and then you've gone back to the finance industry. Can you tell me a little bit about how you managed to use your past experience to reroute your career?
Yeah, so I think when I actually worked in finance for a bit, that was very sales focused, the role. Okay. So I was a broker, an interdealer in an interdealer brokerage firm. So the way I switched from that to tech was I joined that tech startup I mentioned earlier, like the e-commerce SaaS platform, as a sales enablement analyst. So I started working in sales enablement and then had like different roles, as is common, I think, in a startup, just kind of moved around a bit. And that's when I realized that I wanted to actually like understand the product, get more technical, specialize, and ended up doing the Wagon. And then from there, I basically found an opportunity to join the current company I'm working for now, so the investment bank. And this opportunity they were looking for people that were wanting to switch careers. So yeah, they weren't expecting me to have previous knowledge other than the basics, as I mentioned. So then had to interview with them and then go through further training after the Wagon. And then I started on the job literally just like a month and a bit ago. So I've only been there a month. Yeah. But yeah, it did help sort of having the understanding of like, so I studied economics in uni. Okay. So having the background in like how, macro and microeconomics work, and then having worked a little bit in financial markets, our clients were banks most of the time. So having that knowledge as well of how trades actually flow and how they work and they're executed, and then kind of the background in, a few programming languages and data science, and then kind of bringing everything together and doing a bit more software engineering training to actually like start the job. So it all kind of like worked nicely, I think, together, like all the pieces. Yeah,
it's kind of non-linear, but works like kind of like a jigsaw. It's kind of fit together, hasn't it? You made it work.
Yeah, I guess, like that kind of domain knowledge bit with the sort of very, like new skills that I was acquiring in terms of coding kind of came together. Nice.
Nice. Well, congrats on your new job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any sort of key learnings from your first month as a software engineer?
It's a very different environment because I used to work in a startup and now I work in a very big organization. So there is a lot of sort of different departments and it takes a while to get used to how it works. I think key learnings would be to just be patient, I guess. Like sometimes you kind of just, in the role that I work in, which is market risk, you have to understand sort of what market risk is and how it's calculated. Yeah. And then because I work in tech, what we look at is the platforms that the company uses for risk management. So you have to understand the languages that the platforms are built with. So yeah, you just have to be patient and kind of understand, like take your time to understand things. Yeah. Just be open to opportunities. There's a lot of internal mobility as well because of how large the organization is. So you always have a chance to work with, people in different sort of areas in your department. So I guess just being patient, open-minded and knowing that, as we touched upon earlier, like you're never going to know everything. You will know something, but not everything. So it's just, you just have to be open and be ready to learn new things, I guess. Yeah.
Do you think, or what are the pros and cons between working for a big company in your first tech role or working in like a smaller, more agile startup?
Nice. So yeah, that's a good question. I think, so the differences I see, obviously when I was working in tech, I didn't have, a technical role, but at a first glance, I would say, so where I work now, it's very sort of structured. So obviously because it's been around for hundreds of years, everything is already there. And you also have the opportunity to do a lot of things. So just like in uni, you have societies, we have networks. So you can join, you can do literally anything. You can build your own network. You can, I don't know, just honestly, they have from climbing to languages to like sustainability networks. So that's a really good perk. You have the opportunity to meet different people across the organization and go to like loads of events. So there is sort of space and budget for that kind of thing. Whereas maybe in a smaller organization, that's not so structured yet. So that's really cool about it. But yeah, because everything, obviously there is, everything is streamlined and there is processes for things. So, maybe the way I see it in a small company, maybe when you want to test things, it's a bit more agile, more, it's quicker.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through a bunch of different departments and approvals to actually get something into production. So that always takes longer in a big organization, especially, in the financial industry where data is so sensitive.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of regulators like looking at you. It's even more sort of bureaucratic, I would say sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's very different from working in a smaller kind of like solely tech company.
And then Alicia, what's next for your future career? Where are you heading off to?
So I think for now I would want to learn as much as I can about both sort of like the industry and then different programming languages and tools that we use, and then see where that takes me. I think in the long run I would like to have a bit of a mixed role, as in like both technical but not coding all the time. Like I definitely want to speak to people and manage projects and stuff like that. So sort of I hope in the future when I have the technical skills and I know exactly when developers talk about things exactly what they're talking about, then maybe move to that kind of hybrid role, I think.
Yeah,
like
it makes
that.
sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Harry, over to you. Can you tell me a little bit more about Tuggs? We've talked about it a little bit, but I'd love to have another sort of recap.
Yeah, so Tuggs it's freshly prepared dog food.
Okay.
Works on a subscription, direct to consumer basis.
Okay.
And a key thing about all of our recipes is that we use insects as a core ingredient in every recipe. So basically, fundamentally, the business model is you go on the website. We have our own proprietary algorithm. You put in your dog's age, breed, weight, neutered status, range of metrics, and we can work out exactly how many calories per day your dog should be consuming. So it's also breed specific as well. Different breeds have different metabolisms.
Yeah.
Puppies at different months have different metabolisms as well. We factor all of this in, and yes, we basically can create a really curated plan for your dog. And then we ship that out every 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever works. And it's frozen food. So fundamentally, I mentioned insects, and I don't know if you guys have read much about insect proteins consumption.
High protein.
Yeah, so I mean,
sustainability.
yeah, basically, the insects that we use, black soldier fly, they're nutritionally similar to beef, but with a carbon paw print, as we say, which is a fraction. About, for example, the black soldier fly use about 2-3% of the land, water resources, about 4% of the carbon emissions to create the same volume of protein. And it's a cyclical economy. Black soldier fly can be fed food waste, potato peel, banana peel, and the feed conversion ratio is about 2 to 1, or some cases 1 to 1. So you can give black soldier fly a kilogram of banana peel and get a kilogram of edible protein.
Oh, wow.
So beef is 12 to 1, for example.
Right.
So
Big
incredibly
difference.
unsustainable.
Yeah.
And pet food actually accounts for up to 30% of the carbon emissions related to food production. It's an incredibly unsustainable industry. And when you think in the US, I think there's 152 million dogs. The UK, there's 13 million dogs.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's massive population, massive carbon paw print, as we say.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we use insects. So the idea is we want to reduce our reliance on livestock, try and create products as sustainably as possible. And the reason that the food is all freshly cooked and frozen is because basically the majority of processed dry dog food, kibble, that you're used to seeing or visualizing when it comes to dog food is, it's void of fresh nutrition. It's inappropriately balanced. It's engineered for a shelf life of 2 years without refrigeration. You want to find it, go to the supermarkets on the detergent aisle. Over half of dogs in the UK are obese. 47% roughly are dying prematurely from cancer. So they're incredibly,
Unhealthy by the sound.
Yeah, incredibly unhealthy and really significant health issues within dogs at the moment. So our food is basically a take on that. We try and say, okay, this is it's a more sustainable option. We still use meat and fish in our recipes. So it's not just purely insect for a couple of reasons. But yeah, so it's a fresh food option that we try and make as sustainably as we can.
Okay, wow.
So that's Tuggs in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, in a dog bowl.
Yeah.
So do you consider yourself a tech company?
Well, I mean, our digital platform's arguably as important as our physical product. We don't sell retail. I don't know if we ever will. The business model is based on this algorithm and the subscription model. So, but at the same time, I'm not sure what type of startup now wouldn't be tech.
Exactly.
Like, it'd be quite rare, I think, because everyone's going to integrate some level of whether it's data analytics or website or whatever it may be. So, but potentially you could say pet tech, maybe to investors, because that sounds better, like that. You know.
Yeah, really very catchy. I like that.
Pet tech. Yeah. That's what investors probably want to hear. But so maybe.
Nice. And then it sounds like data is one of the most important things to your company.
Yeah.
Like how have you gone about utilizing data in order to sort of make the best decisions?
Well, I mean, obviously there's data in terms of working out the plans for the dogs, and that's obviously massively important so that we can suggest the best plan possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, data is obviously very important from marketing. You know, it's a digital platform, so acquisition comes from social media marketing, Google, Instagram, Facebook, and you have access to a significant amount of data. And if with the majority of your marketing budget is going on these channels, you want to have as good an idea as possible about who the customer is, where you can target them, and what channels that you should be utilizing. So from that point of view, that's kind of with an e-commerce business like ours or a subscription service like ours. It's basically lifetime value versus customer acquisition cost. Yeah. So how much is the customer going to spend over the lifetime of them using your product versus how much did it cost to acquire them? And that's a lot of the time the difference between kind of the winners and losers. So utilizing the data to get that customer acquisition cost down and the lifetime value up probably will make the difference of the success. So it's important.
Yeah, very important. So as a Wagon web dev graduate, what were the most valuable skills you learned on the bootcamp that you use today?
What I touched on earlier, a basic understanding of knowing the repo and basically knowing your way around a repository to know where bits of code are being added, what files are being edited. So basically, I don't day-to-day work on features as much. As I said, I try, but I should stay away from it because I end up messing stuff up. But before things are being committed or before things are being merged on GitHub, I can have a look through the code and just I wouldn't have necessarily been able to write it from scratch, but I can see, okay, we're putting a conditional statement in here. I'm trying to think of an example from the other day. We were looking at cookies and we were doing like an API with meta conversions API it's called, basically to do with now you can't track people on the browser. If you on iOS 14, you can opt out of tracking on your iPhone. Yeah. So it means it's more difficult to optimize for conversions on Meta, but you can now send information through the server. Wow. So we were working on that, or our tech lead was working on that. I was overseeing it a little bit. But I was looking at the GitHub repo, and there was a conditional statement about adding cookies, and I wouldn't have been able to write that, but I could see, okay, should that be added? Should it not? You can question things better, have a better grasp of what's being worked on.
So for anyone who's thinking of setting up their own business, as you've done, would you advise doing something like a bootcamp to get the practical skills in order to build your business and help grow it from that perspective?
To be honest, I think only if it's of interest.
Sure.
Because you could do the bootcamp and then, if you're not interested, you're probably not going to keep up with what's being worked on in the business day to day.
Fair enough.
So if it's of interest, then certainly, because from my point of view, it's very, very valuable. Yeah. But if it was, I wouldn't do it if you just think it's going to be beneficial, because the reality is day to day you're not going to be working on the software engineer or the web development side of things.
Nice.
But yeah, if it's of interest, it's worthwhile.
Nice. Okay, thanks. And then in terms of startup life as a pet tech company, what does your sort of team dynamics look like?
In terms of kind of the structure of how...
Yeah, the structure of your team, how you maybe sort of divide up skill sets and interests.
Yeah, so I mean, it's difficult because we actually only really did a sort of organizational structure chart 5-6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Because you know, as I said, there's 4 of us. So there's myself, we have a tech lead, a founder's associate, which is like a chief of staff, and then customer service lead. And so, you know, kind of over the period of time, so it's been about since April that there's been 4 of us, and since that period of time, we're kind of learning about what our roles are and kind of leading into them ourselves. So it was really only about 5-6 weeks ago that we sat down and we're like, okay, what are the areas? What are our areas? You know, what areas of the business do we own? And try to map it out a bit better, so that for further hiring we can see, okay, these are areas that we need help with, etc. So that's been really difficult. But at the moment, yes, we now have a tech lead who deals with the digital platform entirely. I kind of still put my hands in as much as possible, but I probably should define my role better. And then our founder's associate, Grace, she works predominantly, well, again, on a bit of absolutely everything, but with more of a focus on our marketing, partnerships, brand, that kind of thing.
Nice.
And then customer service is a bit better defined.
Yeah.
So, but it's everything. It's very varied and
nice
and always changing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my next question is, what's next for Tuggs?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of product development, the next thing is we're working on a range of treats using mealworm this time. So so it's a different type of insect. But mealworm's interesting because it's human grade. So black soldier fly is not, but mealworm we can eat it ourselves.
So I can expect
and I think
to see it on my small plates dinner. And
well, you already can. There's already companies that in the UK that have mealworm treats. I mean, it's kind of like a nutty, chickeny texture flavor.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not too bad. I've tried all our dog food.
Good to know.
I've eaten 27 iterations of our first recipe.
Okay.
I had to try them all. Yeah, it's kind of mental.
You have to though.
Yes. Okay, well, you don't have to. But,
Wait, sorry, were the iterations for flavor? Like, were you saying this will taste good for a dog or this will not? Or
a bit of both, like texture, color, and then I guess kind of flavor. I mean, it's not as important for the dog, but we wanted to make sure that it was like really good quality.
That's really cool.
So yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, black soldier fly's fine. It's just a bit of an earthy aftertaste. Okay. But mealworm's really good.
I'm gonna take your word for it.
yeah. And so we're gonna release some treats. Hopefully October, November time. So that's kind of short term, and then long term, it's just about. We're still very young. It's 10 months the company, so it's still about just trying to scale sustainably and probably raise some more funding.
Amazing. Well, good luck. I'm sure there are big things on the horizon.
Hopefully, yeah.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank
it's
you.
been a pleasure. Yeah, and we'll see you all very soon, I guess, on the couch.
No,